Introduction to 2 Corinthians. Author the Apostle Paul. Date written between AD 55 and 57, a few months after 1 Corinthians. Title: From Paul's second recorded letter to the church at Corinth. Background: Titus returns to Paul's at Macedonia to report on the Corinthians' reaction to Paul's previous letter, what we know as 1 Corinthians. That most of the church at Corinth has repented. Nevertheless, some false teachers, leaders of a rebellious minority, seek to belittle Paul's authority and to sway the people away from the message that he has shared with them. These false prophets accuse Paul of being proud, dishonest, lacking in speech and structure, and unqualified as an apostle of Jesus Christ. Were written, possibly Macedonian city in Philippi. To whom? To the church at Corinth. Content: The intensely personal letter from Paul uncovers his heartfelt emotions, ambitions, and love for the church. Paul explains in detail his career and some of the trials he endures in the service of Christ, including a thorn in his flesh that keeps him humble. He then recounts the need for a collection to be made ready for the Macedonian churches. The joy of generous giving emphasized. Finally, Paul defends the validity of his apostolic ministry and calling from God. Keywords: authority, reconciliation, and sharing. The authority that Paul declares over the Corinthians as their spiritual father is granted to him by God, and he challenges every Christian with the responsibility of seeking reconciliation of division within his church, his family, and his friends. Once Christians understand the principles of total sharing, they can begin to stand on the other promises of God. Things: God's goodness is more powerful than Satan's evil. Being granted the ability and the privilege to give to God's work is a blessing in itself. Not all religious teachers are of the Lord. Not all religious teachers have our best interests in mind. Words from the righteous are sometimes misunderstood and condemned by the world. It's okay to boast about Jesus Christ and what he has done. Outline. Number 1. Introduction is found in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 1 through 11. Number 2. Paul's ministry and philosophy expounded. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12 through 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 16. Stewardship encouraged. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1 through 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 15. Number 4. Paul's authority as an apostle examined. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1 through 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 10. And number 5, final exhortations is found in 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 11 through 14. May the Lord add a blessing to the introduction of 2 Corinthians.